So good. Lancaster! Welcome, goodies.
That's you.
I'm Jason Mundock, and this is So Good Lancaster. We're back with another So Good Lancaster nonprofit spotlight. This time we're taking a look at Hourglass. It's an organization that provides reliable information to the Lancaster community to ensure informed decision-making.
I would say largely we're a communications organization.
This is Lea.
I'm Lea Zikmund. I'm executive director of Hourglass. So the real bread and butter of what we do is the First Friday forums, but we also do a newsletter. We do a biweekly newsletter called Keeping Lancaster Current.
That's right. Each month on First Friday, Hourglass hosts a forum at the Ware Center in downtown Lancaster featuring 1 to 3 subject matter experts on topics that have a direct impact on Lancaster County. These are nonpartisan gatherings intended to explore topics with leaders and decision makers so that stakeholders can work toward agreeing about the facts of these topics before making decisions. Today on the program, it's a conversation with Lea Zikmund from Hourglass on a So Good Lancaster nonprofit spotlight. So Good Lancaster is powered by the Candy Factory, also known as TCF, a co-working and social club in downtown Lancaster, Pennsylvania. ClubTCF.com.
Check it out.
It's time. This is So Good.
So good.
So Good Lancaster.
Hourglass. Let's start with the mission of this organization. For anyone who's not heard of it, has no idea what we're talking about, why does it exist?
Hourglass exists because we have an enviable quality of life here in Lancaster County. And so the founders of our organization knew that and wanted to be able to focus on issues that were impacting our quality of life. And not just looking at what was happening in the immediate future, but 5, 10, 15 years down the line, what would become of Lancaster County so that people could continue enjoying the quality of life that we enjoy here. I talk to so many people all the time in Lancaster who absolutely love living here for one reason or another. And so we exist to kind of focus on issues that relate to quality of life. So that there's a lot within that, whether it's public education, whether it's growth and land use, city vitality, and environmental stewardship. Those are kind of our 4 pillars that we focus on.
How old is this organization?
Approaching 30 years old. We started in 1997, so that's 28 years old, 27?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming up on 29. It's been consistent through that time, or were there breaks?
It has been consistent through that time. I think within the past few years, under different executive director leadership, we've kind of honed in on our mission and vision and direction. But it started as a group of concerned citizens in 1997 who, either had planning experience or business experience or nonprofit experience, so coming from a lot of different angles in Lancaster County, who were sort of worried about, I think specifically like city and county relationships and this thing that often happens, which is, big decisions are being made and the people who are stakeholders in that decision are either not talking to one another or not regularly in the same space. And so as a result of that, the First Friday forums that we still hold now were born. And they were really meant to bring leaders in the community together to talk on a topic. And so, as I've heard the story, it's fun that we do have some of the original founders of the Hourglass on our board still, so I can learn from them of like what was happening in 97 when this organization started. But they were pretty adamant that this needed to be a nonpartisan space. People have really different ideologies here in Lancaster, and I think that's really to our benefit in a lot of different ways. We can disagree. We can still work together.
It's rare now.
Yeah. There are not a lot of communities that I think have that kind of diversity of thought and still can collaborate on the level that we do. And so with the creation of these First Friday forums, we would bring in experts who could talk on a topic. And the intention with that was we would have leaders and decision makers in the room who could then influence and speak to people around them about certain decisions. So, some of the early issues that Hourglass worked on were things like the juvenile detention center, bringing people in to talk about what the difference would be in investing in a juvenile detention center or investing in resources to I think the word I'm looking for is anti-recidivism, and just kind of showing like there are a lot of different perspectives to this issue, but don't make a decision about something until you understand it entirely. So that's really, I think, an informed community is a connected community. And so it's exciting that we're still doing a lot of that.
Yeah, for sure. Is the Friday Forums the primary actual function of the organization?
Yes.
And are there other?
I would say largely we're a communications organization. So the real bread and butter of what we do is the First Friday Forums, but we also do a newsletter. We do a biweekly newsletter called Keeping Lancaster Current. It has opportunities for people to get engaged in different things going on in the community, and then some important like high-level research and information that's happening that would impact Lancaster County. We also do an episode series that was sort of born out of COVID called Listening to Lancaster. So those are recorded videos that go to YouTube. That really gives me the opportunity to talk one-on-one with different community leaders and sort of dig in a little bit more like we're doing now. And then we do a large community forum each year on a different topic. So in the past, we've had different speakers like come to Lancaster. A name that many people would recognize is Chuck Marone. He is big in the housing space. So he came to talk about affordable housing in Lancaster. And we've had different speakers come to talk on an issue.
These First Friday Forums, if I just moved to the area and I'm learning about Hourglass for the first time, could you just describe what that is like? Where does it happen? Mm-hmm. What's it like to experience those?
Yeah. Well, I would say first and foremost, having it on a First Friday is really great. I think there's kind of like a buzz around town because in Lancaster, First Friday is like the day. So people go out, shops stay open later, things like that. We host our forums during lunchtime at the Ware Center right downtown across from Central Market. And we actually, since COVID, have also live streamed all of our forums as well. So anyone who becomes a member of the Hourglass gets invitations to all of our forums, and many people sign up to join virtually during, and then they can still ask questions. But usually the format is we have anywhere between 1 to 3 speakers who will talk on a topic. They spend majority of that time sharing whatever they wanted to share, and then our audience asks questions. We have lunch for purchase there. It's feels very much like an adult lecture series in a lot of ways, that you can come during lunchtime, learn something, ask some questions, hopefully network a little bit with people in the community as well.
About how many people are in the room?
I would say generally we get anywhere between like 50 to 80 people. I've been curious about this recently because we've seen a lot more people signing up to join virtually, which I really feel like after COVID, people were pretty excited to get back in person. Yeah. And Lancaster is also like a very in-person community. I used to live in New York and we were like, let's just do a Zoom call like all the time. We're not like that here. So I've been curious about that. I don't know. Sometimes if we're talking about more contentious topics, if people prefer to do that from home or they're busy or whatever, but it's great to have both options.
That's a great service. If I'm not mistaken, those live stream recordings then go out to the general public. Like you can watch it after maybe a week later.
Yeah, that is really important to me, that the information that we provide is accessible to anyone. So I'll actually, because I used to work in a national organization and now all my work is hyper-local, I've stayed connected to a lot of partners across the country. Every once in a while we'll cover something and I'll send the YouTube link over their way once I have it uploaded and say like, hey, we just talked about this here in Lancaster. Might be helpful if you're curious to look into it more or whatever.
Let's go back to your history a little bit. I'd like to hear a little bit more about you. From the area, right? Born and raised?
Yeah, born and raised in Lidditz. I went to Warwick High School, and then graduated, went to Dickinson College. I loved it there. Liberal arts was like kind of perfect for me. Do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew that I had just learned so much in a 4-year period, and I wanted to listen and learn more. And then kind of in a roundabout way, I heard about this nonprofit called StoryCorps, which is an independent nonprofit that works with NPR. So many people are familiar with them through listening to Morning Edition. But it's an oral history and storytelling nonprofit. And so I started as a facilitator with the mobile tour, which is one facet of the much larger organization than when it started. And it's about as old as Hourglass, actually. It started 20-ish years ago.
Okay.
And the mobile tour was like an early on part of the organization. So they got a few Airstream trailers and put a recording studio and an office space inside, and then said, we're going to travel across the country, go to 10 different cities each year.
Wow.
And so in each city, we'd spend about a month recording stories in those locations.
Just like parked along the street or like in a Walmart parking lot, or?
We would coordinate to park at different places that people would frequent. So like I always pictured if we were to come to Lancaster, we would park near Central Market because that's just like a really nice pedestrian area.
Yeah.
We would park at public libraries a lot of the time.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
places that the community would come to anyways.
Yeah.
Because it was a free service, sort of. We would be hosted by the local NPR station who would bring us there. And it was sort of like they were giving a gift to their community. Like, hey, StoryCorps is coming to the community. Anyone can sign up. And the way that it was structured was that two people would come in and talk to one another, usually people who knew each other. Every once in a while, we would have someone come in alone if they didn't have anyone to talk to. But oftentimes it was friends, spouses, children, and their parents coming in to have a conversation. And then we would archive that at the Library of Congress. And then some of those recordings would get chosen to be played on air for Morning Edition. They would get like heavily edited, but I got to listen to like all the full versions of stories, and I never got sick of it. I was coming to the end of my year as a facilitator. And I remember my like supervisor at the time was like, well, your year is coming up. Like, we want to talk about where you're headed. You must be so tired, like recording all these stories. And I was like, I would do another year. Like, I was just so energized by this like living history that we have in the U.S. and so many people who never get asked their story. And they have so much like richness in whether they grew up on a farm or they came from a big family or their first generation or whatever. There was so much to learn.
Did you continue?
I did. I stayed at StoryCorps for 6 years,
Wow.
almost 6 years, and continued to facilitate recordings on different teams. I did a lot of work on our One Small Step initiative, which was getting people to talk across divides. And then I went into management, and then I became the director of the mobile tour, which meant that I then got to design where we went each year.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
Hire my team, and like it was very full circle to be able to like start on the mobile tour and leave designing it.
Yeah.
And kind of seeing all of the different parts that go into it, whether it's like how we're communicating to our grant funders to continue getting money to do the work, and then all of the like digital stuff. It was so multifaceted. It was really cool.
So what brought you back to Lancaster, and how did you end up at Hourglass?
I moved back. I mean, we ended up becoming like remote as an organization. And of course, I had a team that was traveling all the time, so there was no reason for me to be in the Brooklyn office anymore.
Sure.
And I wanted to be closer to my family. And I came back to the area, and I actually started volunteering with a local group called Global Shapers, which has hubs all across the world. Many people won't know this, but Lancaster is like one of the smallest, if not the smallest city represented in Global Shapers. So like all of the other hubs are representing cities like New York and Pittsburgh and stuff like that. And like little Lancaster is in there. And we have...
The little city that could.
Yes.
There we go.
We have such an active and engaged group of young people. So the idea is we work with people between the ages of 18 and 30. We do different projects in our community. The Lancaster Hub has done stuff about like rain gardens here in Lancaster, workforce development. We have an initiative called Ride, Roll, and Stroll, which teaches people about active transportation. But But I met all these people who didn't have that like, oh, that's not my job mentality. And like when you're in any kind of job for a long time, you get used to hearing that. And I was like, this is either the unique group here or this is like how Lancaster is. And I think I started coming to the conclusion that like people in Lancaster just have something special about like, we can get that done. And so I was kind of feeling like my journey at StoryCorps was ending. And I wanted my work to relate to where I lived. And, at first I moved back and thought I was going to leave again. And then I like fell in love with Lancaster as an adult. And I was noticing all of these things about basically like my quality of life here in Lancaster, and had, traveled all over the United States and seen all of these different communities that people know and love. And this really felt like home to me. And I was sick of remote work too. I would get to the end of the work week and I felt like I just came out from underground. Like I was like, where is everybody? Like what's going to happen? And then I heard about Hourglass and it just felt like such a good fit for me to kind of dig into. Like I had really grown to love Lancaster so much. And this organization behind the scenes had been working on a lot of those things for so long. So for me, it feels like I'm kind of coming into the next generation of that work, and really connected to the values and the initial reason why it started.
I think that really speaks to you growing up here, having a foundation here. There's an inherent caring about this area. What about your work at StoryCorps? How do you feel that informs what you do at Hourglass?
I mean, like the very obvious answer for me is I think that we have a lot of opportunity to tell our story better. I think there's, when I sit in my office, I look at shelves upon shelves of binders upon binders of studies and research briefs and meticulous notes that, people before me at Hourglass took about what was happening in the community. And what I see with that is like deep caring about what's happening, about digging into the truth, about being able to deliver good information to people. And my strength is I'm a communicator. And so, as I was finishing my time at StoryCorps, the last couple of years as director, my biggest task was really to like explain StoryCorps to communities that were unfamiliar. And so I would go on air with different radio stations everywhere that I would go on tour. And the importance of breaking down complex ideas into something very simple that everyone can understand, I think is really valuable. And so I bring that with me of just being like, yeah, we're going to dig into some topics that I don't understand. Like we had a pretty high level forum about power and electricity in the age of AI. I don't know all of that information, but I do know where to find people and I do know how to create the space to talk about something. And so I think I know that's my role. It's not to know everything. It's to be connected to this community and be able to say, like, you're the right person to speak on this, and we need to hear from you.
If you have workplace flexibility and can work from anywhere, you probably know how lonely it can get working all day, every day in the same building where you sleep, i.e. your house. TCF Co-working and Social Club in Lancaster is the solution. Get out of the house, work around other humans in real life, and get social with a ton of clubs, activities, and events. TCF offers community, full-time, and private office memberships and day passes if you're just passing through town. Check out clubtcf.com, book a tour, and get plugged in. I've had the privilege of attending several Hourglass First Friday forums, including the most recent as of this episode, which was the annual County Commissioners Forum.
We have each year invited our commissioners to come and speak to the public about what they've accomplished in the past year. In past years, we've asked them what keeps them up at night. I won't be asking you that this year, but that's one that they've responded to several times. Questions about the future, questions about, what we want to understand about what they're working on representing us in county government. So before I, set the further scene, I just would love to have a round of applause for all three of our commissioners coming today. Thank you.
The most impressive aspect of the forums to me has been the ability to present conversations around controversial topics from a very neutral, fact-based perspective.
the most important thing for the Hourglass is that we don't necessarily have to follow national narratives on how to get along. We can do things differently. And so we continue to bring leaders and the public together so that we can solve problems and have conversations in a civil way. And so I just want to thank you all, audience and commissioners, for your cooperation with that. I really appreciate it.
At a time when topics such as immigration policy and the power usage of AI data centers can cause extremely heated dialogue between differing opinions, the speakers at the Hourglass Forums have kept those conversations focused on policy and how decisions about controversial topics will affect Lancaster County.
It is increasingly harder to pull that off in this day and age, like you're saying.
Yeah.
With the political division that we're seeing and the way that people can really easily weaponize an issue against one another, Hourglass has a board, and it's very ideologically mixed, almost kind of like a microcosm of Lancaster. And it's really helpful to talk about different issues like that and to be able to say, we need to talk about this thing. It's coming up in the news a lot, and national stories are obviously going to trickle down into our small community. I've learned there's so much that goes into that too, which is language. Language differs among your political ideology, and so you can easily say a word that someone will say oh, you must identify this way if you said this word or whatnot. So for me, again, it's just been it's been a new muscle to strengthen in understanding how to talk about information that we have, and that's it. There's no agenda. It's just you need to know this information as someone who exists in our community.
Yeah. This is high-level stuff, right? This is national political identity trickling into Lancaster. But I believe it's safe to say that one of the missions or a part of the mission of Hourglass is to preserve what Lancaster is, while at the same time encouraging and fostering this growth of what Lancaster could be. So that's a here issue, not a national issue. How does Hourglass seek to balance those two things, the rich tradition of Lancaster County and the growth of Lancaster County and the progress of Lancaster County? That's
a great question. And some of my favorite stories that I heard, I think just because technology and the way that we do things has changed so much, is in the beginning days of Hourglass, the volunteers who started the organization did a bunch of surveys across the county, and they called people one by one and basically asked them what is your biggest concern about this county? And that is how they shaped a lot of the direction of what they were going to focus on. And so some of that people said was land growth and use. We need to be smart about how we're building and expanding. And within that founding group was someone who worked in the county planning department. And so he had a lot of expertise when it came to growth and land use and things like that. So I think, for us, it's a continued value to ask people what are they noticing, what things are bothering them. I have a button in my newsletter now that says, "Are you curious about something?" And it takes you directly to an email to me. And people take me up on it, and
That's awesome.
Appreciate that because it should be a resource. I do think that any information that you're receiving should have some pathway for you to express that you want to know something. And I think I would say that a value that we all share, myself and the board, is curiosity. And I really admire that a lot. And to be able to sit in a conversation, we have guests all the time who will come and join our meeting and talk to us about what they know. A lot of the speakers that we have maybe come and visited us as a guest first, and then we've said, you have a lot to offer. Would you speak for us? And every time we have a new guest, everyone is just locked in and very curious, and it feels as close as I could get to my favorite college courses without having to be back in school.
Much less expensive, too.
Yeah.
So you've been the executive director of this organization for about a year.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's been plenty to learn.
Sure.
As the executive director, you obviously have a stake and a say in where Hourglass goes. If you look out 5 years for this organization in particular, what's the vision for what it would look like then?
I think we have a huge opportunity to embed the community even deeper into what we're doing. And something that I have paid so much attention to since I started at Hourglass and even before then are trends in local news and information. We don't identify ourselves as a news and information organization. You know, we have an established newspaper here in Lancaster. However, I do think because we're so adjacent to delivering news and information, being aware of those trends is important. And a lot of people who are doing really great work in delivering news and information are also understanding that there needs to be an exchange between the community. There needs to be accessibility between the community. And so I think that what we're doing now, we're doing really well. And I can see that in the fact that we have members who have been with us for years and are really, really dedicated, and they trust us. We haven't broken that trust, which is really a delicate thing and not something that I take for granted. My vision for the Hourglass is to build on that work and build on some of the opportunity to connect city-county divides and other divides that I see here in Lancaster. And kind of in the early phases of some of those plans, doing some mapping out what that plan will look like in the beginning of 2026 and doing some grant writing. But really what that will look like is kind of putting me in front of different communities and asking them, not just what problems are you seeing in your community, but who do you feel like has the solutions, like who's working on those solutions. I think there's, if you're in the public school sector, you may be a little bit out of touch with what's happening with folks over here, maybe in like the business sector. And Lancaster is so good at being connected and active. And at the same time, it's like impossible to avoid silos.
Right.
And so I think we have a strong, connected membership base. We have people who really care about our work. And I think now we can kind of direct our services a little bit more to connecting people.
It's awesome. Thanks for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
And thanks for taking some time to share it with us.
Yeah.
Really excited to see where it goes. I'm grateful to have gotten turned on to Hourglass in the last year or so, and to be able to come to these forums. I think it's excellent work, and I've already learned so much just in the 3 or 4 that I've been able to attend. So I appreciate that.
That's awesome. Thanks for having me here. I love talking about my curiosity and what we're doing.
Find out more about Hourglass online at hourglasslancaster.org. Hey goodies, we do love hearing from you. Do you have an idea for a show? Do you have feedback about what you heard today? Head over to sogoodlancaster.com and submit your comments. And until we meet again, stay good, Lancaster. Stay good. So Good Lancaster is produced at So Good Media in Lancaster, Pennsylvania by yours truly and Ann Kirby. Follow us online at sogoodlancaster.com and follow us on all of the socials. Have any comments, questions, or want to learn more about how So Good Media can help you with your podcast and media productions? Drop us a line at hello@sogoodmedia.studio.